So happy Spiritual Sunday to all of you who are watching from around the world. Just a quick reminder, please start a watch party. Those of you I see every week, there's quite a number of you who are very consistent with starting watch parties, so that's greatly appreciated. We get the word out there and more people showing up. So please take a moment to start a watch party. And don't forget, I've been asked to remind you and all of you, if you haven't liked the Spiritual Sunday Facebook page, please do. I'm assuming if you're here, you must like it. If you're watching, you must like it. So just get it up there. I think that changes whatever they call it, the algorithms, and more people are sort of led to Spiritual Sunday. And imagine what's going to happen when we have about like 10 million people learning at the same time what we're learning here. Think how that's going to change the planet, which is actually one of the things we're going to get into. So let's get started. So as I put on the Facebook page, how many of you can think of one or two or three toxic people in your life? Anybody?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, any of you out there? Yes, you can go ahead. I can read that far. I think if you say yes. Oh no, I have to scroll down. Oh, there we go. No, okay. So you think of those toxic people. You enjoy having them in your life? Why not? Why don't we enjoy toxic people? Because they create some kind of negative impact on us, yes? So what would we like to do? We want to get rid of them. We want to get them out of our life. Yes? Yes, of course. How many of you have ever gotten rid of a toxic person in your life? Anyone out there? Few people? You get rid of them, yes? So you look around the world now. Do we have a lot of toxic people in the world? Negative, we want to even call them evil people, yes? So how badly do you want to get rid of those people? That's the question we have to start with. Yes, they're out there. We see them, right? We've experienced them in our life. How much do we want to get rid of them? So we say, well, you know, here we are. We're all good people, et cetera, et cetera. How come those toxic people keep showing up? Or how come you see in the world? Just look at history. You get rid of one negative person who's creating a lot of destruction in the world, and then a few years later, suddenly there's another and another and another. So I started to think about it. When we see that, are we stupid people? No. What'd you say? Okay. Right? We're not stupid people. Are we bad people? No. No, if you're here learning and you're here in the center or connected in any way, you can't be a bad person. Are we spiritual people? Yes. Trying to be. Yes, that's it. We would consider ourselves spiritual people. So how come if we're good people and spiritual people, right, and there's so many good people around the world, why is it that evil and negativity keeps popping its, rearing its ugly head? Generation after generation. Do you know one generation didn't have toxic people in it? Maybe there was a generation that didn't have mass destruction, not that I could think of, but, right, let's say, but there were always toxic people and negative people. So what I wanted to bring out is something. It's very deep and very powerful, and it's actually shocking when you first read it, because this is from Rav Ashlag, the founder of the center and the greatest Kabbalist in the last 500-600 years. And this is his book on world peace. So if you want to read it, and he starts right in the beginning, the first page, everything that exists in reality, whether good or bad, including even the most evil and damage-causing thing in the world, those toxic people and evil people, has the right to exist. Shocking, no? To the degree that destroying it and removing it completely from the world is forbidden. So now we think back and we think of all those toxic people or the negative people that we found a way to remove them from our lives. So we have to understand, does that mean that the world should have evil and negativity and chaos and pain and suffering? Yes or no? Nope. Shouldn't. It shouldn't. Right? Now, does it? Yes. And that's the thing. You and I are good people. How many times do you hear people say, well, how come these good people have bad things happen to them? Right? Yeah. What does that infer? Well, if we're good, there should be no bad. So if the majority of the world are just good people, why is there always negativity, negativity, negativity? And that's what I wanted to bring out. And he explains, rather, it is our duty only to repair or fix it and to guide it towards goodness for even a casual observation of any sort at the work of creation that lies before us is enough to infer the high degree of perfection of him who created it. Meaning what he's saying is, if we believe the Creator is perfect, then the universe has to be perfect. And therefore there can be nothing, as he continues to say, nothing superfluous or unnecessary in this world. So then why do these things keep showing up? Why is there evil in one generation after another? Why do so many of us have toxic people in our lives? And this is what I wanted to bring out, because we forgot the purpose. We forgot why we're here. You imagine, pick your sport. Let's just start with football, right? American football for you who are out there, right? American football, what's the purpose? What's the objective of the team with the football? Is to score a touchdown, meaning take the ball, carry it across the goal line into the end zone. What if all of a sudden you're in the middle of the Super Bowl and you, bam, you zap both teams with the energy of forgetfulness, and they forget that the purpose of what they're doing is to take the ball and cross the goal line. So they pass the ball, they run with the ball, they're running in circles. Maybe they're even tossing it back and forth with the opposing team, because that seems like a sensible thing. You got a ball, you pass it to somebody who doesn't have it. What will happen in the game? They'll never achieve the objective of scoring a goal and winning the game. So the same thing with us. If we've forgotten our purpose of being in this world, how can we achieve it? We can't. So some of you are already saying, I can already hear that voice. Well, Chaim, I've taken Kabbalah 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I know the purpose. Really? Do you know the purpose? Yeah, probably. If you took Kabbalah 1, 2, 3, and 4, you probably know the purpose. But how many times in a day are you consciously thinking of that purpose? No, we're getting distracted by all the things in the world. That's the issue. And in that way, we forgot. Moment to moment, we're forgetting the purpose of being here. The same thing. You have the guy passes the ball, right? The quarterback passes to the receiver. He receives the ball, then you zap him with forgetfulness. He forgets what he's doing. 5 minutes before he knew what he was doing, he knew he was going to catch the ball, run to the end zone, and score a touchdown. But now you zapped him with forgetfulness, he forgot. That's what happens to us when I say we forget the purpose. So let's remind ourselves. Because if you take Rav Ashlag and understand, he's not telling us just nice philosophy. No, because he goes on to explain, what do you do? What do you do with unripe fruit? You ever seen a tree with unripe fruit? So if you look at the unripe fruit, as Rav Ashlag tells us, so do you say to the, this is a terrible tree. It's unripe fruit. Not many farmers here in Florida. Really, just citrus capital of America, right? So what do you do with an unripe orange as it's growing on the tree? Do you pick it off and say, no, I'll wait for the ripe one? No, we understand that the fruit is in the process of becoming more and more ripe and sweet. So you don't think it's bad when it's unripe, you let it continue its process. So basically that's what he's explaining to us. He says, so we are of a similar nature. Now let's make it very clear, especially for those of you who are newer. And please, if you just joined us, I encourage you, please start a watch party. Let other people have access to this wisdom. Somebody out there is waiting for you to push that watch party button because they've just gone through enough chaos, enough difficulty that they're looking for solutions. And so you'll push the watch party, they'll get the notice, and they'll want to come see what we're talking about. So here, let's remind ourselves. What are we doing here? The endless world, before the Big Bang, the Creator created us perfect, a piece of itself. But it created us as receivers, what we call vessels, with the desire for the light of the Creator. Now here's where the key comes in. The vessel is a desire to receive the light. How many of you want to have complete fulfillment? Any of you? Complete, absolute fulfillment? Because that's the nature God created us with. The desire to receive and the capacity and all the resources to make it happen. But there's one key to that. The only way to make that happen is when we act like God. So here we are, God created a vessel, a container. And then what did God do with its light force? The light of total and absolute eternal fulfillment. Fill the vessel with it. So now what's our free will? Our free will is to decide, Do I want to behave like a vessel? Do I want to behave like the light? That's number one. That's our free will. What was our purpose in coming here? What was the point? We understood that if we don't act like the light, we can't have the fulfillment that the Creator has. So then the only purpose, let me rephrase that. The only purpose, let me rephrase it again. The only purpose that we came here into this physical world was to act like God. Plain and simple, which means what? Share our light in whatever form, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, gratitude, generosity, humility, etc. Shine our light in any form that it exists in this world, 24/7, and to every person on earth. Every person. Because why? As we'll share with everybody else, acting like the light, then what happens? We're all going to be light beings. We're all going to have that sense of fulfillment. And what we'll be able to do, that will be peace on earth. That's when we've completed our mission, when we're shining our light to everybody. Then we can enter heaven on earth together. Until then, the door of heaven on earth is locked. Nobody gets in until everybody gets in. Now, if that's our only purpose coming here, is to transform our nature from being like the vessel, receiving, to being like the light, where do we see that? How come? Because we could still say, look, wasn't it great? If you go back in history, let's go back a few hundred years, so we don't touch maybe some emotional buttons for now. You go back a few hundred years and you see these people who were just, out there with their soldiers or whatever, and mass genocide. They go into a town, they just wipe out everybody. And then they go in another town and they wipe out everybody, and they're just pillaging everything. And some force came along and got rid of them. What would we say? Great, wonderful. We stopped all that destruction. Happened again and happened again. So as we learn, we want to take the Bible as, yes, we believe it happened physically, that those people existed, what I'm about to share with you, but we also want to learn the lesson. What did they teach us? So here's Abraham. Go way back to the beginning. Abraham, the patriarch. So we say, what was the transformation he made? He took all the idol worshipers and he turned them into understanding the power of the Creator, the light force. Why didn't he go out? He was capable. On his level, he was capable. And here and there you read, he went out to war. When people are attacking him, he went out to war. So you can say, well, Abraham fought and got rid of those people. No. Going to war was not what we think. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the main lesson we learned, he transformed people. He went away from his homeland. He went out of his comfort zone. He went out into the world, he and his wife Sarah, to activate the light inside people, to touch their heart and soul and tell them, no, you don't have to be stuck in the, how do you appease the God of the sun? Then how do you appease the God of the moon? And how do you appease the God of the rain? And this, no, it's all one. It's all interconnected. So then essentially, if you act like God, because God is in control of all of those, the sun, the moon, the stars, the rain, the weather, etc., then you can have a connection to all the goodness there is. And that was Abraham. He went out to transform people, not just to destroy the idol worshipers. Like you and I think, well, get rid of those toxic people, it'd be great. Right? Not even for mankind. What if we got rid of all the toxic people in the world? Wouldn't that be good for mankind? Now you know it's no, because we read from Asa. But let's see why. Let's see how we can grasp it. So then you have the story of Jacob. Maybe it's a little more personal, because maybe you and I don't have the ability, except through this, to reach the masses of people, right? Like Abraham did. But you take Jacob. Jacob, the ultimate patriarch, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you know Kabbalah, the central column, the perfection. He had one main enemy, his brother Esau. Esau hated him and wanted to kill him. So he ran away. And what was he doing while he ran away? Because I'm not telling you have to hang out with those toxic people. But as Jacob taught us, Esau was now hunting down Jacob to kill him. So you could say, oh, Jacob should just get, a weapon, get rid of Esau, and now it's finished. No, what weapon did he use? He sent so much light, as you and I can do, channel the light of the Creator through us. As we said, with those actions of kindness, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, seeing beyond the illusion, he sent so much light to Esau that when Esau caught him, instead of killing him, you know what he did? Hugged and kissed him. Hugged and kissed him. Now, after that, Jacob was able to go away. They went their own way peacefully, harmoniously. So let's get a little personal. Can we? You mind being personal? How many of you can remember when you first came to the Kabbalah Center? Did you come from pain? Did you have some painful event that you had to come here? That you wanted to find some solace, some answers? How do you deal with it? How do you understand it? Were you in a sense of lack? Chaos. Something chaotic was going in your life. You couldn't figure out, how could bad stuff happen to the good people? Or some of you want to just say, no, I was just curious. I was on a spiritual path. Either way, when we came to the Kabbalah Center, can you look back and say, yes, I was completely perfect. Had no anger, no jealousy, no greed, no ego, no resentment. Some of the people here shaking their head, but that's because they're off camera. Right? We all came with something. So if we're thinking, yes, we have to get rid of and remove from the world negative people, then what should have happened to us? Should have been removed. Right? Not come to the center, been removed beforehand because we had our negativity. No, the beauty of what we're learning as we're speaking specifically today, it's transformation. We came here to transform the pain maybe you were in into a sense of peace and serenity. The lack that you felt, the chaos that you were in, transform it into a sense of fullness, a sense of order, a sense of harmony. Are we still on that path? Yes. 33 years I'm doing this. I can't tell you I'm 100%. But I'm sure far ahead of when I walked in here 33 years ago. And that's why I'll keep going. And that's like Rav Ashlag says with the fruit. You let it go. If you find that unripe orange, you don't say, well, tomorrow it should be ripe. No, it may take another week or 6 months or whatever it is. You let it go through its process until it's ripe. That's what we want for ourselves. What about for the other people? Don't you want the same thing? That's the point. Because as he says, there's nothing superfluous. There's no extra person on earth that you can just take them out of the world. Yes, we will feel that way sometimes, don't we? Take them out of my life and I'll be happy, joyous, everything will be great, right? If you're in a business, you have a competitor. What do you want to do with a competitor? Get rid of the competitor, my business will get better. So tell me, let's be sensible. Does that always happen? Does every business get better when there's no competition? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Does everybody have greater peace of mind? How many times have you gotten rid of? Think back to when you got rid of those people. In the beginning, oh, wow, great, relax, oh, peace, right? I'm relieved of them. And then what happened a few weeks later? Even now with a new person, how many of you started looking back and say, maybe they weren't so bad, maybe it was me, maybe it was this. Right now you start to feel bad about pushing them out of your life. Did that ever happen to us? Few heads shaking, right? Can you relate? You get rid of them and then you're feeling bad you got rid of them. So just by getting rid of people, good, bad, or in the middle, doesn't necessarily make our life peaceful and completely fulfilled. That's why Rav Ashlag is saying, no, think perfection. There's perfection in the universe and we want to move forward in that perfection. But to do that, you can't just get rid of. We can't get rid of ourselves. We can't get rid of other people. We have to transform. Start doing more actions of love and kindness and compassion, etc. Start acting more like God. Because if you really want to get rid of the negative people, how are you going to do that? Be like God. And what does be like God mean? What I want for me, I have to do for other people. So if I want people to have a little tolerance for me when I'm a little off, then I have to, for my own good, not for their good, for my good, have a little tolerance with those people. Because if I don't have tolerance for them, the universe won't have tolerance for me. The more I have tolerance for them, or the more I want good for them, the more the universe will want good for me. That's what we've got to keep in mind. But we see the same thing, this repetitive pattern. More negativity, more negativity. How are we going to get rid of it? If in 5,781 years, according to Kabbalist counting, we've seen evil and negativity over and over and chaos. I mean, I've shared with a few students recently. What's the difference for the victim either being, you go back 2,000 years. So one guy didn't like the other guy, they stabbed him and killed him. Is there any real difference for the victim whether he was stabbed to death, or somebody hit him on the head with a rock, or somebody took a pipe, or somebody took a gun. What's the difference? Dead is dead. You follow? So we think, no, generations have improved. Look, now we have machine guns, so we can get rid of all of our negative people faster. We have bombs, we can get rid of people faster. If you don't get rid of the source of chaos and negativity, you will never, ever, ever get rid of the negativity. Is that not true? Heaven forbid a person gets sick. Why do they go to a doctor? Yeah, but how are they going to get better? So the doctor gives them morphine. How good will they feel if they're staying on morphine for the next 10 years? They'll feel good, right? Person on morphine, they don't feel anything. Meanwhile, the body is deteriorating because the illness is still there. So really, when a person goes to a health practitioner of whatever form, what are they really seeking from the health practitioner? Find the cause of this pain, this ache, this trouble. Find the cause, get it at the cause level, then it's healed. Yeah, it'll have to go through a process, but it'll be healed because you got rid of the negative cause. Well, what about in humanity? We have to do the same thing. So we have to go back. What's the cause of all negativity? Yours, mine, and even the most evil person you can ever think of. Thoughts. Thoughts. What do we say here? Consciousness is everything. Which means what? Our thoughts. What drives every human being's action on earth? Thoughts. We have the wonderful blessing being here in the center to understand why is it? Did you ever stop and think about that? Especially if you're newer. Why is it that you and I can have negative thoughts in our head if we're all good people, if we're kind people, if we're compassionate people? How can we have negative thoughts? Because as the Kabbalists taught us, we have in our head this thing called a parasite. It's a spiritual parasite called the opponent. And what does the opponent put in our head? All the thoughts of limitation. I'm not good enough. They're bad. Let's get rid of them. The world will never be at peace, right? I can never make it. All those negative limiting thoughts. That's the programming of the parasite. Worse, they're bad. Judge people, be jealous, be envious. What does it do? It creates separation, fragmentation from the light of my soul. It's not even just about the other people. What about my soul? If thoughts run everything, and that parasite, because remember, who are we? We are pure and perfect beings of light. We're created perfect by the light of the Creator. We have that perfection of the light inside of us. All we have to do is let it out. But we have that parasite. You have to learn Kabbalah 1 to understand why it's there in detail. How, what, where, and how we overcome it. But we'll touch a little bit on it. It's there to put in our mind all the limiting thoughts. So we have a battle. Where's our battle? Our battle is here in our head. And that's why the Kabbalists call it. And some of you have heard of something called the War of Armageddon. The last war. The final war before peace, the Messiah, heaven on earth, etc. Why is it the last? Because it was the first. In Aramaic, Milchemet Gog uMagog means the war of consciousness, the war of mind. Because even let's say you're thinking of those negative people or the people in the world and you say, well, they did bad things. So let's conceptualize. If you take the most evil person you can imagine in history, and let's say, just for this discussion, let's say they were paralyzed, quadriplegic in a wheelchair. Could they still have done what they did? Yes, because the brain where the opponent, that parasite exists, was still there. So their thought to commit those evil acts started there in the thought. Just because their body can't do whatever you look back and see doesn't mean that they couldn't have, with their mind in the same way, influence other people to do it. In fact, isn't that what we accuse some evil people? They brainwashed people. I like that. How come we don't call it they body washed people? Think about it, right? The bad person brainwashed somebody to do evil acts or negative acts, yes? And maybe even towards you, brainwashed. Hello? Wake up. What does brainwash mean? Consciousness, thoughts. If they put the right thought in a person, they can get them to act in a negative way. Well, then what if we turn it around? What if we put light thoughts? What if you and I can activate the light inside us and the light inside others? So the light thoughts win in the battle in our mind, and therefore light behavior will come out. Now what happens? You should be smiling. Think of that. Big smile. All I have to do is think light thoughts, act in a light way, and the light will come back to me equally. This is where the fight is, my friends, here in our head. It's not out there. So how are you going to get rid of those toxic people? How are you going to get rid of all the evil? We've said transformation from vessel to light. Why do people do evil things? They want a sense of fulfillment. Like you and I. Why did you get rid of those toxic people? Because you thought if you got rid of them, you'd be more at peace. Desire to receive peace, harmony, the light. Just in the wrong manner. That's the power of this parasite called the opponent. So now you're in the Kabbalah Center. We got the tools, the wisdom, the awareness, how to turn that around. How to say no. If we really want to get rid of negative people, use the fundamental law of cause and effect. Like attracts like, and opposites repel. Rav Asher calls it disaffinity. Now I know for some of you this is a bitter pill to swallow. But if we've had toxic people in our life, it's because there's a part of toxicity in us. Like will only attract like. Now, before you go off the handle here, our degree of negativity may be 1% of what theirs is, but it's still of the same material. How many of you have a little bit of impatience? Whether it's driving, at the supermarket, with people around you, a little impatience, right? Yeah, everybody's pointing at each other over here, right? So a little bit of impatience. What's the difference between that and acts of violence? What caused people to do acts of violence? They're impatient. They don't want to wait for the process of whatever, getting together, having discussions, working it out, etc. They're impatient. But their impatience on a higher degree causes them to do violent acts. So they're impatient. Their violence and our impatience has an affinity. So if you really want to get rid of those negative people, we have to create disaffinity. We have to get rid of our toxicity. Only one way. How do you get rid of toxins in the body? Purge. You have to purge. You have to cleanse. Why not just take more, what do we call it? More, what was the word I used? Take more of the drug. Morphine, thank you. Right? Take more morphine. You take more morphine, you don't feel anything. Right? Then you don't feel the toxins. No, the point is you want to draw the toxins out of your body. Now, as you draw the toxins out of the body, and I remember the first time I heard Karen Berg say this, because when I came to the center, I had no idea of this, all the homeopathy stuff, etc. As the toxins come out of the body, what's the first thing that a body feels? Sick. They call it a healing crisis. Because we're only used to sort of overriding, let's say with various levels of like morphine, right? Overriding it so we feel okay. But the toxins are there. So now a person does a cleanse to take the toxins out. It goes into the bloodstream. They feel worse. But keep going with the process. The toxins will come out of the body. And now all the organs are pure, cleansed, healed. And then they can function properly. So this is essentially what Rav Asher is saying in On World Peace. If we're guiding people by guiding ourselves at the same time to remove the poisons from within us, to remove the toxins from within us, then as we do that, we're revealing more and more of that pure and perfect light being that we are by transformation. So yes, we have to be willing to go through those healing crises. So sometimes you'll say, okay, I'm going to send light, I'm going to wish people, because remember, if like attracts like, and we're acting like the light, and the other person holding on to their negativity, yes, naturally, we will move apart. We will repel each other. But the beauty of what we learn here is we're not just getting rid of a negative person. If we're sending light to that person, where does that light we're sending them go? It goes directly into their soul, because their soul, our soul, every soul on earth, filled with the light of the Creator. And if we're sending light to them, what's happening to their soul? It's waking up, waking up, waking up, waking up. Right? They're also starting now to feel a spiritual awakening. what's their healing crisis? You send light to one of, even in your life, a toxic person. You say, this person is just always so judgmental and critical and judgmental and critical. All I hear from them is all the bad stuff. You send them so much light, what are they going to feel inside first? The healing crisis is going to be, they're going to start to feel pain, inner mental pain. But of what? Of their judgment, of their criticism, of how they're imposing negativity on other people. So it's a positive pain, because where will that drive them? It'll drive them to stop. When you and I or anybody out there feels that their own behavior is causing their chaos and their pain and suffering, then they're going to change it. But as long as the opponent in our head can make us believe you're causing my pain or they're causing my pain, then it's only if I can get rid of them or move away from them or whatever, I'll feel good. But it won't happen, because the pain or the source of negativity is in each of our heads. So you send them light, pushes them away, and help them transform at the same time, while I've been transformed at the same time. I just gave you the winning numbers to the lottery. They don't look so happy here. I think they're thinking of the healing crisis. How about you? Think about it. You really want to get rid of all the negativity? That's how you do it. Send them so much light that either they will completely transform, and then you'll be good friends, or their negativity will go away from you, because you're adding the light, and taking away your negativity will push away their negativity. So you get rid of your impatience, you push away more of those more intensely impatient type people. And at the same time, they're having that spiritual awakening. So it's never just getting rid of the darkness. You can't. You've got to transform it into light. So I want to tell you a story that somebody just told me recently. I have a student. She's, for about 2 years now, she's been telling me she has this business partner that's very negative, right? And she's free to admit she got into the business not in the right consciousness. So she's been willing to take responsibility for that and work on herself. But along the way now, she got herself into a little bit of a jam with his partner, who was very obstinate, greedy, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going on for years and years. They're trying to, find a way to dissolve the business and move their separate ways, et cetera, et cetera. They can't agree on terms. It goes on and on. So she tells me about 2 weeks ago, she says, as she's been doing her change, she says, they were finally sitting down to work on things. And she says, shockingly, her business partner started to be a little nicer, was acting a little nicer. And then in the middle of their meeting, got a call from the doctor's office. And you could see on the face of the partner, like fear, because she had gone through tests or whatever it was. And she was worried, of course. Doctor, after a test calls you, what's the first thing a person thinks? Because of the parasite, the opponent, not because of the light, right? The parasite is, the worst news you could ever hear. So she sees, the student here sees that on the face of her partner. She says, no, stop. She says, if the doctor's office is calling, it's good. It's a blessing, because they're calling you because even if there is something, they know what they can do about it. They know how to bring you in and start healing and working on it. So she says the face of this business partner started to turn around. The doctor called, et cetera, et cetera. But she says then, as they continued their business thing, this woman was just like agreeable. The student, she's telling me, she says, I can't believe it's like we went from being on completely opposite pages over these last couple years, and now all of a sudden in this meeting, we're on the same page, looking at things the same way. That's transformation. You could say, yes, what would have happened a year ago, let's say, if they had, just even by lawsuit, had split and moved away. Neither one would have had any change. The student in the center, yes, maybe she would have changed after that. But it's the same thing. She just gets rid of the negativity. Like Rabbi says, you just take it out, it's going to keep repeating. So she would have just found another bad business situation. But she was willing to persevere through it, do her transformation, and she came to see very clearly, like will attract like. So you want to get rid of toxic people, you have to send them light, plain and simple. If we don't do that, then it's just going to keep repeating until we feel enough discomfort that we want to do it. That's it. Look back on your life. When did you make changes in your life? Either two ways. Either you had a spiritual awakening, a realization, wait a second, I'm beginning to see my behavior is similar to that. Again, ours in a minor degree and theirs maybe in a major degree. But like attracts like. Right? Like attracts like. It doesn't matter. What's the difference in gravity if a person steps off, one of those little parking bumpers and, drops whatever it is, a few inches, or somebody steps off the fourth floor balcony? Gravity is gravity. You're just talking about the intensity of it. Obviously, stepping off the fourth floor balcony can be a little more harmful to that person than just stepping off, maybe whatever the parking thing. You follow? Like attracts like. So we have to decide right now. The more we do, think out there, this is the other thing. If thoughts are the most important thing we've got because it drives us. And let's understand that even as many people as there are right now or in the 50 years since the Rav and Karen Berg have been spreading Kabbalah to the masses, let's say we have a few million people who've come through the center. And maybe now we've got 100,000 or so who are actively studying. Kabbalah.com, watching Spiritual Sunday, et cetera, et cetera. Out of 7.5 billion people, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. But we can understand most of those people out there who aren't learning this or aren't on a true spiritual path, they're essentially walking around unconscious. And I don't mean in a negative way, but like most of us used to be. You're just kind of habits, whatever your habit was. How many of you drive to work the same way every day? For 5 years, 10 years, etc. It's just a habit. Just that. Yeah, you can tell me, but it's the fastest way, etc. But you understand? It's just habitual. How do you brush your teeth? When do you brush your teeth? You ever change your patterns? No, we tend to do the same thing over and over unconsciously because it seemed to work. So this is our advantage. If most people are unconscious and they're just following the cosmic orders, you and I who have the Zohar, we have Ana B'Koach, we have 72 names, we have this wisdom and we have these tools and we're making our own transformation. Think how much influence we have on them. Because the vast majority of the world are not really evil people. Let's say 10% are evil, 90% are good, but 80% are the good sort of unconscious people, and 10% are the really spiritually awakened. So these 10%, you and I, we have the ability of influencing the 80%. Because as we change and we put more light in the cosmos, what's going to drive even their unconscious behavior? Greater love, peace, compassion, tolerance, forgiveness. The chaos that we see in the world is going to start disappearing because people are going to be influenced not to do the negativity. That's the point. And also, don't forget, if you understood what Rav Ashlag said, every person, what do we say here very often? Who are we? We're pure and perfect beings of light. So everybody's pure and perfect. So there's no evil people. There's light beings doing evil acts, negative acts like you and I. But there's no evil people. So that's the beauty. We're learning how to awaken the light inside everybody, the part that acts like God. The more we act like God in sharing, the more they'll act like God. Like will attract like. And even though, let's say, we're only 100,000 people, we are influencing 7.5 billion people. So the more we use the Zohar, the more we use the 72 names, the more we understand this technology and keep learning and encourage people. Come and learn. Go to Kabbalah.com, study. Start to see what the Kabbalah Center is teaching to make your life better. So then the faster we unite more people, what's it going to be? Think, if we are a being of light with the power of God and we can unite ourselves, it says in the book of Leviticus, when a person connected to the light of the Creator, just the background, he says, and then 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000, and your enemies will fall by the sword before you. Meaning, the few connected to the light can overcome those 7.5 billion by the sword, which is not the physical sword killing, the sword of the light. Like a surgeon. We want to become spiritual surgeons to be able to excise, take out of people that spiritual parasite, the opponent that's putting in the limitation. Because as we're doing that for others, it's happening to us. Think what happens if everybody removes their parasite and there's no more spiritual parasite putting in those thoughts of limitation, lack, pain, suffering, judgment, fear, ego, greed, etc., then what will everybody do? Everyone will behave like God. What could be more like the heaven on earth? What could be more than the Garden of Eden when all of us? So we have to decide right now, right today, are we willing to do that? That's why I asked in the beginning, how much do you want? Because that's the judgment. We have to make the value of the uncomfortable acts of sharing thousands of times more valuable to us than the value of holding on to our judgment, our fear, our anger, etc. And then we will be like the story I'll leave you with. They say, the Kabbalist in the Middle Ages was like one of the ministers, the cabinet ministers to this king. And they're walking through the marketplace because the king wanted to see, the people and this and this. And as the king walking, he hears this one man on the side of the road, criticizing the king. The king is no good and the king is bad and this and this and this. So the king looks at his ministers and says, I want you to go cut the tongue out. Cut the evil tongue out of that man. So fortunately for the man, the Kabbalist goes to the man, whatever they do. A month later, the king is out again walking. And now he sees the same guy. And he's talking. And the king looks at the Kabbalist and says, didn't I tell you that you should cut out his evil tongue because of all the bad stuff he was saying about me, the king? And the minister, the Kabbalist says, listen to what he's saying. And the guy is on the side of the road. The king is so kind. The king is so generous. The king is so caring. He says, you told me to cut out his evil tongue. So I cut out his evil tongue and I replaced it with a good tongue. That's the power we have, my friends. We just have to band together, fight together as one, that parasite, and then we'll use our sword of the light and we'll take out not only yours and mine, but we'll take out the collective opponent, evil tongue, spiritual negativity, and then we can all live heaven on earth. God bless. Thank you. So just before we do the meditation on our offering, I just want to encourage you. Many of you out there have told me here and there, things have happened, things have changed. So if you've noticed on Kabbalah.com, now we're collecting stories of the students, right? This is what our students are saying. So any of you who've seen some improvement in your life or some blessings in your life through the tools of the Kabbalah Center or some of the teachings or Spiritual Sunday, please do me a favor, write to me a short note and let me know what that transformation is. And also, if you're willing, just add a note, that you give us permission to use your story. We won't use your whole name, etc., but just to inspire others, right? That it can be shared on the website or even here on Spiritual Sunday, to let other people know the value of what we're doing. So I appreciate that. We always want to put consciousness. We want to put our love and our blessing into the offering because that's the way it does more than the physicality. Now, there's whatever you give in the 1% physical world, we could say, oh, we'll do so much. The more light and the more love we put in it, the further it will go. So imagine now we start to do both. We're able to give more and we put more love into it. It's going to reach those 7.5 billion people, get rid of their opponent, and we'll be able to see this year. That's our goal. This year we want to see like major transformation. Because if you watch the astrology panel, what's coming up is going to be the falling out and the disassembling of anything that's not based on the light, whether it's organizations, whether it's countries, whether it's politics, whether it's economics, etc. So you and I who are with the light and have the tools of the light, we can ensure that even though the pieces may have to come apart, it'll be peacefully, it'll be serene, and they'll go back into their pure and perfect order. Because it's easy to take things apart and put them back in another negative way. We want to take them apart and put them in the original order. Okay? So let's take a moment. Those of you out there in cyberspace, please join us. Just close your eyes, holding your offering. One, just to appreciate all the blessings the Creator's given us to be able to have these resources. Two, let's listen to the voice of the light. Use the clarity, use the illumination to be able to identify how the opponent, that spiritual parasite, is creating limitation. We can't give, times are difficult. No, remembering everything we have, the very breath that we breathe, to the talents and abilities, to all our resources, come from the Creator. And as long as we stay connected to the Creator can find hundreds of ways, thousands of ways to bring us more good. So we awaken this gratitude, appreciation, feeling the blessing to be able to share the books of the Zohar, the wisdom of Kabbalah to the world, awakening the godlike nature on a higher level in us and a more powerful level in others. Injecting our love, our light, to help speed up the ripening process. Because as God gave us a piece of itself, how fast we create peace on earth is in our hands and ours alone. We commit ourselves with the power of this offering to have greater strength, clarity, wisdom, and understanding. How to handle our challenges, to identify and to defeat the opponent. It's in our own head. And supporting every other part of our soul. It's in every other person on earth. To remove their opponent, their limitation, their negativity. And in sharing this gift, knowing that it will come back to us many, many times over. Together we say, Amen. Just one quick thought. I found something from Karen's book, Simple Light, that I wanted to share with you as we're finishing this morning. So Karen says like this: we need to be beacons of light even when there is no one around to give us brownie points for it. That is the consciousness we must bring into each day. We don't share light hoping for something in return. We give it unconditionally. Because as we share unconditionally, then the Creator, which is obviously a lot bigger than us, will share from its resources more unconditionally. God bless. Have an amazing week. Please share with me your stories. Let me know how Spiritual Sunday is affecting you, about Kabbalah, how the Zohar, miracles of the Zohar. And also, if you have a particular subject or a question, please write those also. Maybe there's a subject you'd like me to cover, or you have a question that perhaps in one of these Spiritual Sundays I can answer for your good and everybody around the world. Okay? God bless. Thank you.